The National Association of Nigerian Students has called the Federal Ministry of Education to sanction Nigerian institutions running unaccredited courses. Now, this follows the suspension of evaluation and accreditation of degree certificates from the Republic of Benin and Togo. Factional National Senate President of the students' body, Elvis Kundino, called on the government to extend its sanction to tertiary institutions operating in Nigeria who are offering courses without accreditation from relevant authorities. NANS wants the government to collaborate with other student bodies to rid the country of illegal tertiary learning institutions towards repositioning the nation's education sector. Okay, so let's have this conversation with Dr. Sam Amadi, who is the director, Abuja School of Social and Political Thought and associate professor of law. I need to underscore that point. You didn't get that in 3 weeks or a matter of months, or as a matter of fact,
Absolutely.
You know, not learning, not reading, not studying, not registering. That's what we're hearing about this situation.
Yep.
I mean, how scandalous is this?
Well, I think it's really scandalous, but again, it speaks more to the lack of rigor in the Nigerian assessment. You know, all over the world, there are very, useless institutions doing useless things, basically, and people know, nobody cares about them. The problem with Nigeria is that we have a uniformity that's wrong. Elsewhere, schools are even rated. For example, when I was a graduate student in Massachusetts, there are schools that when you go to those schools, you're going to work in the city center. You won't work in top elite institutions because there is some kind of liberalization. So people know different levels of quality. You see the crisis going on with Harvard and the professor.
Harvard,
because people are worried, look, there should be some level of higher rigor and standard for certain elite schools. So today we've got these lines blurred. Again, we are people who are rushing for certification. And we don't, even the employers of labor, don't make effort to distinguish between certificates. So people, I used to teach at the Nigerian Institute of Legislative Studies, and I see people who are civil servants, directors, come to do masters. And one instance, the person who was doing masters, highly placed, couldn't even write a paper. And I asked my friend, why do you have to do a master's degree? You already have a first degree, you're already a director. Why do you need a certificate? If you really love masters and PhD, why not go to the rigor? So that's the Nigerian thing. We are just flying over the world looking for certificates.
Is it even fair, really, to say it's a Nigerian thing? Because I have reservations about that. When
there are two levels.
Say it's a Nigerian thing.
The certificate.
I mean, there are many Nigerians like yourself.
No, why is it Nigerian thing? No, there's a difference between individuals and culture. The whole deal of culture norms is what we call collective action. Meaning that few people may not do things differently. But if the system promotes a certain shallowness, for example, certificate, people think about certificate too much. But I have PhD. I give an example. People come on this show and as a professor who've never been taught in a secondary school. I mean, they may be smart guys in their own conceit. They never taught. And we address them as professors. So that's what is a Nigerian thing. This idea of highfalutin, sometimes hyphenated, doctor, professor, ambassador.
Chief.
Is our thing. Okay. So it goes
Chief, not chief.
Well, it goes back to the system. So people now go for anyhow to procure certificates. Now, what the NUC has done is correct. But again, somebody say arrest them. You can't close down institutions if they don't claim to be accredited by you. So we must have to this in mind. That's unregulated backwater where people can deceive themselves and get certificates in 1 year if you like. Nobody cares about them. As long as NUC is clear on this accreditation, keep publishing what is right, people can go. And then employers will know that there is a process of certification. And therefore, when you come with those useless certification, they just throw it away. So what I see is that even the Nigerian regulatory framework is infiltrated and weakened. Today, I can tell you, there are people who are professors, and the NUC published it, who didn't have PhDs, who didn't even have good certificates. So it's a virus that needs to be tackled systematically.
Or is the genie not already out of the bottle? Let's talk about the impact on distance learning. Because, I mean, when you have 18, such schools shut down, and the possibility is that maybe many more maybe banned or
shut down.
Yeah, shut down. How does this affect distance learning, considering that there's a whole number of Nigerians who want to
scarcity
really
of placement?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you see, NUC shouldn't ban distance learning. I mean, we have Open University here. We have courses that are done online. For example, I had even gone to NUC to ask for online postgraduate university. See, the key thing about learning is not whether it's online or in person. It's about rigor, it's about faculty, it's about curriculum and the structure. So there's nothing wrong in people sitting their work to earn degrees, distant learning. There was a time that I can understand medicine, I can understand some rigorous courses, a time that Council of Legal Education banned so-called city campuses for law. They say, okay, we're not going to take evening law.
Because they overreach themselves.
Professional rigor, you might say, but some basic social science courses, people can earn them without that. So I think that there should be rigor. And again, let's make this point very clear. What was NUC doing? What was Minister of Education doing until a journalist reported this matter? And again, just 2 days, when did Minister of Education now do the regulatory rigor assessment? So this sounds like silly.
Like a knee-jerk reaction?
Silly, because it shows they have no regulatory capability.
To start with.
A journalist brought something, you've not even reviewed it. So what you should have done is to issue a statement to say, wow, we are shocked by this. We have started a review process. So maybe in a week, so this knee-jerk doesn't suggest rigor. But just, okay, the guy says, we're going to stop processing Togo, Nigeria. You're a regulator, Minister of Education. What have you done? It took a journalist time to do this, went through the process. And that piece of evidence should be used in a regulatory rigor to process, investigate, find out before you come out. So first, this might be just knee-jerk to sign up to the optics. Oh, we did something. You might discover that these are not the ones to even actually ban.
Right.
Like Nance saying on functional and whatever. They're right. Look inward, develop a template, conduct a re-review, and periodically deal with these certificate failures. In fact, there are some Nigerian universities, and private and public, that probably need to be decertified. NUC is licensing a lot of universities. I've had conversation with the head, and he thinks that probably we should reduce more on infrastructure. Okay, that's fine. So many schools, we need more schools, we need people to roll in. Again, we also have to, as a nation, say that, look, what's our policy? Professor Konjiwa, the father of the famous Ngozi, wrote a book about his expert in education policy. Nigeria had to go back to education policy. What are we trying to achieve? How do we structure, mass-based education? Everybody has certificates, PhD, have PhD.
And when we say education, exactly what do we even mean?
Exactly. Yeah. So you can have people take courses online to get basic knowledge, but you have to have a sense of where are the real technical human capacity, national strategic development focus.
Now that you even talk about human capacity or human capital development, what impact is this likely to have on the overall picture if these were allowed to go on? Apparently it's been going on for a long time. How is it going to impact human capital development?
First, it will impact assessment of Nigerian degrees and certification. I mean, if the country has no control over who gets what, then when people claim to have certificates, it will impact assessment overseas. And this is not a joke. When I was a student at Harvard, I was helping with recruitment, and I discovered that Legon, University of Legon,
in Ghana,
scores higher in Harvard's law school assessment professors than we do, whatever it is. So I try to change that narrative. So let's not be joking. Some of these reports affect assessment of our certification, number one. Two, it also affects quality of human capital, because essentially some recruiters don't know the difference between Hog or whatever you call it, University of Benin and University of Calabar or University of... So they recruit people who have the capability. So I think that we need to do two things. One, the clear definition of what the education policy is. It's already in the education policy implementation. Two is that we have two streams. I was support that the government should have centers of excellence, fund them differently to produce first-class material, and allow people to go to second tier, third tier, fourth tier. And then those fourth tier knows that they have a trajectory. They're going to work in some
So with this rating, you know what you're getting, you know what to expect.
You know where you're going to work. They track you to lower level work. And then those who have the competence, who have been trained in proper schools that are certificated and rigor, it's just like journals today. whether I'm talking about SAN, or whether I'm talking about professorship, so many of our publications are from what they call predatory journals, where people just pay money, get published somewhere in Asia, journal of nonsense, and then this will become professor. There should be a sense in which this is elite structure, and this is backwater. So when you go to the backwater, you end at a less harmful level.
Right.
Then those people who would drive the national development operatives and institutions will be persons who go through that level of proper education and certification. So I think we have collapsed standard. We need to create levels.
How do we bring back the standards? Where do we even start from? And what kind of standard are we talking about?
NUC can start. For example, now, go back to look at even the so-called professors, academic. Look at that, and then put some rigor to how universities push people to university level like professor or associate. Not just in terms of volume. Re-examination of the quality of journals and research and publications that account. There's so much of number, 300 of nothing. I mean,
what you're describing, what you're saying is a tertiary level. Yes, of course, the issue here is at the tertiary level of education.
Exactly.
But I want to believe it would be more fundamental than that, starting from the elementary, primary level, to lay a standard in a way that will impact whatever you build on it.
So this is how it works. You see, basic education should be strong. I mean, if you look at PISA, the test for performance in mathematics and sciences, Asian, Scandinavians do excellently well because of a couple of factors. You know, parents' involvement in education of the children, incentive structure, facilities for learning. So you have to build that level because that's the head start that gives you, the critical capability for citizenship and for development. At the secondary level, you begin to track people to capabilities. And at the university level, that's the point I'm making. The university level is where innovation, kind of peaks. That's where you go, research and all that. But it starts from the basics. So we have a good 6-3-3-6 structure, which is very good in terms of,
Is it 6-3-3?
6 primary.
6-3-3-4.
6-2-4, yeah. 6-2-4, sorry. 6 in the primary school, by which time we have to give them basic compulsory education. 3 at the junior level, by which time they will be able to decide who goes where, technical, commercial, grammar, whatever you call it, liberal education. And the university then is the apex. So what I'm saying, you have to do all. You have to strengthen head start, early education. And that requires facility, teacher retraining, parents' involvement, and the policy of government to say we want to have the best. So, for example, state like Anambra that has been scoring very high in the WAEC and all that, states have to compete, and that should be incentive.
From a deliberate policy.
Deliberate policy that we want to be top. We want to make sure that we have the best, first graders, sixth graders. Then at the secondary school, you begin to expose them to that level of sophistication. So you are beginning to track them well. We don't have to go to grammar school, really. We don't even have to be graduates. We need also, South Korea and Japan did well with informal education, in training, work. That's why I have the ITF and all that. So we need to education for development has to be multifaceted.
Education for development. That's the purpose of education.
Absolutely.
But let's look at that secondary level. I mean, that seems to be the critical aspect. Nigerian president, I mean, you can be a Nigerian president with a secondary school certificate, right?
Absolutely. Or less.
Or, no, I don't want to.
No, the way it says, or any, or any other acceptable to INEC. In fact, it's a slippery slope to nowhere.
That's a different,
that's a different
ball game entirely. But, going back to the issue of technical skills, technical know-how, there was a time when there was this disparity between technical, colleges and universities, and then there was the attempt to, make them universities collapse, at par. Further sending that message, that signal out there that you must get a university degree, that your technical skills or know-how don't really matter, but that is what really matters to
development. Well, the way I look at it this way, you see, you're right. If you look at Germany, they have a lot of technical universities.
Absolutely.
So they are called universities, but they're technical. Meaning, you see, the approach to science and education is more technical. I think it's right to equalize technical schools and, let's say, HND and maybe BSc in some sense. But the key point is this. It depends on the national strategy. You see, I think that we should be doing a lot with building technologists.
Right.
Focusing on technical education. And today, when I look at Caltech, California Institute of Technology or MIT, you see a mixture of technology, orientation, and, if you like, academic scholarship. The critical thing is that we are neither nor. So we are not strong in the technical side of things. We're not even strong in the normative, rational, social science research. So you can do both. So I think there should be a national policy to say, look, if you look at 1960s under Eastern Nigeria, Western Nigeria, Obama, for example, was very clear that you need skill sets. The reason for education as part of economic development is to build a state capability, including manpower for research, scientists, innovation. And you have to connect it to industry so that it moves away from mere invention, mere ideas to innovation. So I think we need to go back and say, look, we need to have technologists. China's strength also, because they have machinists, people learn how to. And even in the lower level of technology, building, craftsmanship, we are lost. So I think that this vocational technical education project should be properly developed. And truly, we don't need to all go to university. And there's also a reform happening globally with technology diffusion. There's also, emphasis has moved away from too much of academic degrees, that they matter, but more about competencies, skills.
Your skills,
techniques.
your capacity.
So we need to focus on, can we really compete? Can we have the kind of technologies, innovators, engineers, and grammarians too, that will help us in the 21st century economic development strategy. So don't leave out this, but be clear. The problem is that we're not clear. Japan was very clear. Germany today has their many technical universities. They are driving research in climatic change, different things, spending money promoting those competitive areas. So we're just giving flat money to everybody. We're not using our money. That's the point I'm making. Create a hierarchy. Pursue strategically what drives your development. De-emphasize some things. Categorize some courses and universities as elite and give them funds. So you see, when you give...
So we have our own Yale...
if you give like UI and Sokoto Imsu the same money, you're not doing the right thing. So you stimulate innovation by giving these people more based on research, based on criteria that are accessible, and then you stimulate competition and excellence.
Dr. Sam Amadi, there's so much to be said about this. Thank you so much for joining us on News.